Hello, my name is Catherine, and I'm reading to you from the book The Power of Positive Thinking. We're doing the second part of chapter 6. Stop fuming and fretting. Slow down, for whatever you really want will be there when you get there if you work towards it without stress, without pressing. If proceeding under God's guidance and in His smooth and unhurried tempo, it is not there, then it was not supposed to be there. If you miss it, perhaps you should have missed it. So, definitely seek to develop a normal, natural, God-ordered pace. Practice and preserve mental quiet. Learn the art of letting go all nervous excitement. To do this, stop at intervals and affirm, I now relinquish nervous excitement. It is flowing from me. I am at peace. I repeat, I now relinquish nervous excitement. It is flowing from me. I am at peace. Do not fume. Do not fret. Practice being peaceful. To attain this efficient state of living, I recommend the practice of thinking peaceful thoughts. Every day, we perform a series of acts designed to care for the body properly. We bathe, brush the teeth, take exercise. In a similar fashion, we should give time and planned effort to keeping the mind in a healthy state. One way to do this is to sit quietly and pass a series of peaceful thoughts through the mind. For example, pass through the thoughts the memory of a lofty mountain, a misty valley, a sun-speckled trout stream, silver moonlight on water. At least once in every 24 hours, preferably in the busiest part of the day, deliberately stop whatever you are doing for 10 or 15 minutes and practice serenity. There are times when it is essential resolutely to check our headlong pace. And it must be emphasized that the only way to stop is to stop. I went to a certain city on a lecture date and was met at the train by a committee. I was rushed to a bookstore where I had an autographing party, and then to another bookstore where another autographing party was held. Then they rushed me to a luncheon. After rushing through the luncheon, I was rushed to a meeting. After the meeting, I was rushed back to the hotel where I changed my clothes and was rushed to a reception where I met several hundred people and drank 3 glasses of fruit punch. Then I was rushed back to the hotel and told I had 20 minutes to dress for dinner. When I was getting dressed, the telephone rang and somebody said, Hurry, hurry, we must rush down to dinner. Excitedly I chattered, I will rush right down. I rushed from the room and was so excited that I could scarcely get the key into the lock. Hastily, I felt myself to be sure that I was completely dressed and rushed towards the elevator. All of a sudden I stopped. I was out of breath. I asked myself, what is this all about? What is the meaning of the ceaseless rush? This is ridiculous. Then I declared independence and said, I do not care if I go to dinner. I do not care whether I make a talk. I do not have to go to this dinner and I do not have to make a speech. So, deliberately and slowly, I walked back to my room and took my time about unlocking the door. I telephoned the man downstairs and said, "If you want to eat, go ahead. If you want to save a place for me, I will be down after a while, but I am not going to rush anymore." So, I removed my coat, sat down, took off my shoes, put my feet up on the table, and just sat. Then I opened the Bible and very slowly read aloud the 121st Psalm. "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help." I closed the book and had a little talk with myself, saying, "Come on now, start living a slower and more relaxed life." And then I affirmed, God is here and His peace is touching me. I repeat, God is here and His peace is touching me. I did not need anything to eat, I reasoned. I eat too much anyway. Besides, the dinner will probably not be very good, and if I am quiet now, I will give a better speech at 8 o'clock. So I sat there, resting and praying for 15 minutes. I shall never forget the sense of peace and personal mastery I had when I walked out of that room. I had the glorious feeling of having overcome something, of having taken control of myself emotionally. And when I reached the dining room, the others had just finished the first course. All I missed was the soup, which, by general consent, was not a great loss. This incident was an amazing experience of the healing presence of God. I gained these values by simply stopping, by quietly reading the Bible, by sincerely praying, and by thinking some peaceful thoughts for a few moments. Physicians generally seem to feel that much physical trouble could be avoided or overcome by practicing the philosophy and methodology of not fuming or fretting. A prominent citizen of New York told me that his doctor suggested that he come to our clinic at the church because, said his physician, you need to develop a calm philosophy of living. Your power resources are played out. My doctor says I am pushing myself to the limit. He tells me I'm too tense, too high-strung, that I fume and fret too much, and, he concluded, my doctor declares that the only sure cure is for me to develop what he calls a calm philosophy of living. My visitor arose and paced the floor, then demanded, "But how in the world can I do that? It's a lot easier said than done." Then this excited gentleman went on to say that his doctor had given him certain suggestions for developing this calm philosophy of living. The suggestions, as outlined, were indeed wise. But then, he explained, the doctor suggested that I see you people here at the church, for he feels that if I learn to use religious faith in a practical manner, it will give me peace of mind and bring down my blood pressure. Then I will feel better physically. While I realize the doctor's prescription is sensible, he complained, How can a man 50 years old, of a high-strung nature such as mine, suddenly change the habits of a lifetime and develop this so-called calm philosophy of living? That did indeed seem to be a problem, for he was a bundle of excitable and explosive nerves. He paced the floor. He thumped the table. His voice was high-pitched. He gave the impression of a thoroughly disturbed and baffled man. Obviously, he was showing up at his worst, but he was clearly revealing the inner state of his personality, and the insight thus gained gave us a chance to help him through understanding him better. As I listened to his words and observed his attitude, I again understood why Jesus Christ retains his remarkable hold on men. It is because he has the answer to such problems as this. And I proved that fact by suddenly changing the line of the conversation. Without any introductory words, I began to recite certain Bible texts, such as, "Come unto me, all ye that labor, and the heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That's Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. And again, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." This is from John, chapter 14, verse 27. And still again, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee." This is from Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 3. I recited these words slowly, deliberately, and reflectively. As this reciting went on, I noticed that my visitor stopped being agitated. Quietness came over him, and then we both sat in silence. It seemed that we sat so for several minutes. Perhaps it wasn't that long, but finally he took a deep breath. "Why, that's funny," he said. "I feel a lot better. Isn't that queer? I guess it was those words that did it." "No, not the words alone," I answered, "though they do have a remarkable effect upon the mind. But something deeper happened just then. He touched you a minute ago, the physician with the healing touch. He was present in this room." My visitor evidenced no surprise at this assertion, but eagerly and impetuously agreed, and conviction was written on his face. "That's right," he said. "He sure was. I felt him. I see what you mean. Now I understand. Jesus Christ will help me develop a calm philosophy of living." This man found what increasing thousands are presently discovering, that a simple faith in and practice of the principles and techniques of Christianity bring peace and quietness, and therefore new power to body, mind, and spirit. It is the perfect antidote to fuming and fretting. It helps a person to become peaceful and thus to tap new resources of strength. Of course, it was necessary to teach this man a new pattern of thinking and acting. This was done in part by suggesting literature written by experts in the field of spiritual culture. For example, we gave him lessons in the skills of church-going. We showed him how to make church worship a therapy. He was instructed in the scientific use of prayer and relaxation, and as a result of this practice, eventually he became a healthy man. Anyone willing to follow this program and sincerely put these principles into day-to-day practice can, I believe, develop inner peace and power. Many of these techniques are outlined in this book. In attaining emotional control, the daily practice of healing techniques is of first importance. Emotional control cannot be gained in any magical or easy way. You cannot develop it by merely reading a book, although that is often helpful. The only sure method is by working at it regularly, persistently, scientifically, and by developing creative faith. I suggest that you begin with such a primary procedure as simply the practice of keeping physically still. Don't pace the floor, don't wring your hands, don't pound or shout or argue or walk up and down. Don't let yourself get worked up into a dither. In excitement, one's physical movements become accentuated. Therefore, begin at the simplest pace. That is by ceasing physical movement. Stand still, sit down, lie down. Certainly keep the voice down to a low pitch. In developing a calm control, it is necessary to think calmness, for the body responds sensitively to the type of thoughts that pass through the mind. It is also true that the mind can be quietened by first making the body quiet. That is to say, a physical attitude can induce desired mental attitudes. In a speech, I related the following incident which occurred in a committee meeting I attended. A gentleman who heard me tell this story was greatly impressed by it and took its truth to heart. He tried the technique suggested and reports that it has been very effective in controlling his fuming and fretting. I was in a meeting where a discussion was going on, which finally became rather bitter. Tempers were becoming frayed, and some of the participants were decidedly on edge. Sharp remarks were passed. Suddenly, one man rose, deliberately took off his coat, opened his collar, and lay down upon a couch. All were astonished, and someone asked if he felt ill. "No," he said, "I feel fine. But I am beginning to get mad, and I have learnt that it is difficult to get mad lying down." We all laughed, and the tension was broken. Then our whimsical friend went on to explain that he had tried a little trick with himself. He had a quick temper, and when he felt himself getting mad, he found that he was clenching his fist and raising his voice. So he deliberately extended his fingers, not allowing them to form into a fist. In proportion to the rising of his tension or anger, he depressed his voice and talked in exaggerated low tones. "You cannot carry on an argument in a whisper," he said with a grin. This principle can be effective in controlling emotional excitements, fretting, and tension, as many have discovered by experimentation. A beginning step, therefore, in achieving calmness is to discipline your physical reactions. You will be surprised at how quickly this can reduce the heat of your emotions, and when emotional heat is driven off, fuming and fretting subside. You will be amazed at the energy and power you will save. You will be much less tired. It is moreover a good procedure to practice being phlegmatic or apathetic, even indifferent. To a certain extent, even practice being sluggish. People thus constituted are less likely to emotional breaks. Highly organized individuals may do well to cultivate these reactions, to a degree at least. Naturally, one does not want to lose the keen and sensitive responsiveness characteristic to the highly organized individual. But the practice of being phlegmatic tends to bring about a keyed up personality to a balanced emotional position. Following is a technique consisting of 6 points, which I have personally found of great helpfulness in reducing the tendency to fume and fret. I have suggested its use to countless people who practiced it and find it of great value. The first point: sit relaxed in a chair. Completely yield yourself to the chair, starting with your toes, proceeding to the top of your head. Conceive of every portion of the body as relaxing. Affirm relaxation by saying, "My toes are relaxed. My fingers are relaxed. My facial muscles are relaxed." Second, think of your mind as the surface of a lake in a storm, tossed by waves and in tumult. But now the waves subside and the surface of the lake is placid and unruffled. The third technique: spend 2 or 3 minutes thinking of the most beautiful and peaceful scenes you have ever beheld, as for example a mountain at sunset or a deep valley filled with the hush of early morning, or a woods at noonday, or moonlight upon rippling waters. In memory, relive these scenes. Fourth point: repeat slowly, quietly, bringing out the melody in each a series of words which express quietness and peace, as for example, tranquility. Say it very deliberately and in a tranquil manner. Tranquility. Serenity. Quietness. Think of other such words and repeat them. The fifth point: make a mental list of times in your life when you have been conscious of God's watchful, full care, and recall how, when you were worried and anxious, He brought things out right and took care of you. Then recite aloud this line from an old hymn: "So long thy power hath kept me, sure it still will lead me on." I'm going to repeat that. So long thy power hath kept me, sure it still will lead me on. And the sixth point is, repeat the following, which has an amazing power to relax and quiet the mind. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. I repeat, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. This is from Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3. Repeat this several times during the day. Whenever you have a fraction of a moment, repeat it aloud if possible, so that by the end of the day you will have said it many times. Conceive of these words as active, vital substances permeating your mind. sending into every area of your thinking a healing balm. This is the best known medicine for taking tension from the mind. As you work with the techniques suggested in this chapter, the tendency to fume and fret will gradually be modified. In direct proportion to your progress, the power heretofore drawn off by this unhappy habit will be felt in your increased ability to meet life's responsibilities. So that's the end of chapter 6. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do put it into practice. My name is Catherine, and I'll be back soon with the next chapter for you. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.